He is just a good-for-nothing prince. But he is respected by all the ministers in the court, even surpassing his prestige. The wife was on the spot and the empress only used English. The empress used it in order not to be coerced by the minister to marry her. The ancient summoning accidentally summoned Xiao Tian to this world. And seeing a character suddenly appear in front of him, he didn't stop for a moment. I looked down and asked in a daze, "Who are you and where am I looking?" The aura is exactly that of the empress of the Great Yuan dynasty. From today onwards, you're the prince of the Great Yuan dynasty. The husband I met looked at Xiao Ting. The bewildered empress told Xiao Tian the whole matter, and thought that Xiao Ting would be angry. The empress was about to say, "What do you know?" that Xiao Tian's eyes are shining with excitement. "Is it possible that I can do nothing in the future as long as I act as a shield?" "That's all right." Seeing Xiao Tian's reaction, the woman is won. But she still nodded. "So what are you waiting for? Let's start. Let's go." Xiao Tian excitedly slapped on the bed, but the girl shook her head, expressing that she couldn't satisfy him when husband and wife, but would. He has no worries about food and clothing, prosperity and wealth all his life, and at the same time, he also said that he will find a way to help him solve the contract in his hand. He turned around and went back to the study to take his daughter away, after Xiao Tian looked at the so-called contract in his hand. When it was activated, suddenly, hearing whether Dr. Ding activates the strongest supreme system. As a Sanhao youth consumer post who has read countless articles, he immediately understands that this is Goldfinger, a must-have product for time travel. Is beyond everyone's expectations that Xiao Tian directly chose to give up the one from his previous life. He has no relatives. He is a killer who only knows how to complete tasks. The idle prince is more enjoyable. The system stopped and he chose to give up. So he planned to erase Xiao Tian's memory and search for the target again. It can be operated through the system, whether it is a certain vent or falling off the host, and even needs to recognize the master and seize power and fail and warn. The opponent is the ultra-high-dimensional Earth defending biomonitoring system trying to open the slave family planning mode, but it still fails. Watching the system fail again and again in bewilderment. What the hell is this situation? Finally passed the system. After 9 failed attempts, the system successfully activated the Ridge mode, the Zhaoding. But much smaller Tengyu system still refuses. The reason, after agreeing to receive it, the Tengyu system immediately asked Xiao Tian to name him Xiao Ting without even thinking about it. He directly took the name of Wang Kai. This is the system to let Xiao Tian learn to restrain his breath as soon as possible. Otherwise it will endanger other people around him. Life stopped, turned his head and looked to the side, and found that a potted plant beside him was slowly disappearing under the influence of his own momentum. Seeing this, Xiao Tian immediately restrained his momentum. Xiao Tian restrained his breath. The tree also stopped and continued to dissipate his feeling. I seem to be getting stronger when I ask the system what I am doing now. Dear master, you are from an ultra-high dimension. The defending champion used to be suppressed by 49. 0 rules for a long time, but now it is not so much in this low dimension. Rules suppress your body is hungry to absorb the power between heaven and earth. Your strength has nothing to do with the realm of this world. Your strength is your own body. Xiao Tian took a sip of tea and asked about this world. How much is the pressure of the rules? When I learned that the pressure of the rules here is only 3 days later. Xiao Tianjin's sip of tea can be even more. What shocked me was that a big hole was smashed into the wall with saliva behind my back, and then Xiao Tian asked the system to recall his state. However, the system's ability to detect it is also limited. In the martial arts field, a knife should be broken at random. Well, but the system said that these are the top quality auras of the 6 schools, which are regarded as superior weapons. The 5th great Xiaotian decided to change weapons. After finding a good one, I stopped and raised my hand, as if my other hand was chopped off, but my jewelry is fine. But the sword was destroyed by this pile of electricity. After knowing his general strength, Xiao Tian lost interest and went back to the house to sleep. When he woke up the next day, he found a beautiful face beside him, but Xiao Tian was indeed pale. Cover yourself, I'm not clean, you coughed twice and asked. Did you sleep well last night? Xiaotian said embarrassingly. It's good, but did I say the wrong place? I said here to stop others. In the future, I will come over from time to time and send some people to come. If you need anything, when she walked to the door, she turned around and said that she called you here for her own benefit. Mix it with and salt. Apologized. Xiaotian came then back slowly to his disappeared in Xiaotian's room. She is indeed your daughter who supported me for a generation. Woke up, she really is extraordinary. That there was a naked girl lying next to him. Beautiful days here I can't happen. I don't even remember that I was eaten, you know. This is the empress of the dynasty. And left casually. And at the same time said that he would come often. After taking you away, Xiaotian started to lie down comfortably. Is this the feeling of being taken care of? Xiaoting didn't know that Muddy was in a state of desperation surrounding the war situation in the north at this time. The barbarians in the north are constantly harassing the territory of Dayuan. This man's prosperity has also left the royal court after listening to the report of the general. This time, he decided to personally conquer the barbarian holy envoy with his own hands. In this way, the No 30 woman took the soldiers with her, heading to the battlefield. Xiaotian is indeed roasting wild game on the mountain. Xiaotian, the general's daughter, protector of the murder case. Zhang Ling was very upset about this, just when he shook his head and sighed at Xiaotian's behavior. Xiaotian was suddenly taken away by someone. At this time, Xiaotian had already been cut off. Another bandit leader looked at Xiaoting's face. The ignorant empress's husband is such a licensed product. At the same time, Zhang Ling, who rushed over, also had black lines all over his face. The kidnapper was tied up, but Dottie was gnawing on the big pig's head. Although he was very unhappy, the waste prince, and now he quickly jumped over to Xiaoting, preparing to rescue Xiaotian when the kidnappers were not paying attention. Is this a trap set by the kidnappers? I saw a blockade circle rising from the foot of Zhongling to trap him. Dragon sword inside. You really think highly of me this time. The kidnapper walked over slowly and stepped into the air-breaking room at 16. Of course, Tianqi will give enough respect. Xiaoting, who was nibbling on his thigh, asked doubtfully, what is the system and the air? What's the fun? So systematically Xiaotian briefly introduced the realm of cultivation in this world. At this time, Zhou Yun was preparing for the formation. Launch an attack to destroy this certificate. The leader of the kidnappers is grinning sinisterly. Don't waste your time. This formation is for you to restrain your prison breaker. Who are you? How do you know? It depends on the leader taking off the mask on his face. How do I know that everyone is shocked? Yang Shuo, you are not dead. That Xiaoting stood up at this moment. Since we all know each other, we went first to hit him on Xiaoting's shoulder with 2 hands. He threw it away. And then he took out a pack of medicine powder with both hands. You just need to draw this on who is going to the empress's martial arts field. Xiaoting snatched it before he finished speaking. No problem. This coordination makes both hands a little confused. Just watch him take it out. A verbal promise of medicine is not enough. You have to do something before you finish talking. The medicine bottle was snatched away by Zixing, and then he raised his head and put it away. The medicine in it was poured into the thief. I can go now. I'm worried that if I smoke for too long, these women will have a bad intention. Helping you with both hands, this kid is completely confused. This kid doesn't follow the script. Seeing Xiaoting so spineless Xuan, he was so angry that he scolded Xiaoting for being shameless. Xiaoting ignored him, turned around and pointed his hands at each other, and said that he was convinced even after reading it. Tell me about you. Can you take her away, but with both hands? It will be famous and leave Xiaotian to play. He has no choice but to express that he will not follow his mission. Xiaotian was going to say something even if he couldn't do it. And he didn't want to eat her. The little quack screamed and roared. He rushed towards Xiaotian and through Xiaoting's hair. Just when everyone thought Xiaotian was going to end, Xiaotian, opening his mouth leisurely in Chinese. And that little quack are both a little cute. Why is this guy so leisurely? Let's see Xiaotian in the next second. With a gloomy face, I must move my hands and feet, and then turn my head to look fiercely at the little coffee. I hate other people doing it the most. Speaking of the hair, he punched the little guy. He joked that the little quack was stopped in an instant. The whole territory was conquered. and even the mountain walls were conquered. Xiao Tian blasted out a huge hole, and then slapped him to the side, and the other two youngsters probably became popular as well. Hui Xiaotian walks towards Liangsheng step by step. I just want to be a happy idle frog and live a carefree little life. Why are you? No, I didn't cooperate just now. Why did you force me to take action? Liangshu was frightened and cried in an instant, repeatedly kowtowed to Xiaoting to admit his mistake. But Xiaotian looked at him coldly and didn't speak. But the scattered senior aura. His hands were lost by Xiaotian in the blink of an eye, and the volume of the aura was scattered by Xiaotian. Xiaotian walked towards Zhongying again at this time, finally thought that Xiaotian was going to attack him. He closed his eyes in fear and begged Xiaoting for mercy, but Zhang clearly heard a click. Linglong's composure was suppressed so much that the annual report released Zhongling with her bare hands. After Xiaoting told him not to move here, she wanted to go, destroying corpses and eradicating traces. Disappeared in front of everyone's eyes, knowing that he was safe. Zhongling breathed a sigh of relief. He saw a mountain in the distance, bouncing and jumping towards this side. Xiaotian hit this mountain to give him a chance, and finally felt that his cognition was about to collapse. What kind of monster is the prince? Guessing that Xiaotian may have surpassed time, the existence of the Bible suddenly made a huge roar behind him, only to see Xiaotian. The moment I raised that place to the ground, with the mountain I carried back, I finally had a new perspective on the destruction of corpses and traces. Cognizant Xiaoyao will clean up when the time comes. Said that your mother didn't tell the adults. Should you listen carefully? Zhou Ming was so frightened on the spot that his legs softened and he knelt down. The ground hurriedly promised that he would never talk nonsense and stop, then restrained his momentum and pulled Zhang Lin from the ground, got up and walked back. It didn't take long for the women in charge of the guards to come out of the grass in awe, seeing that they all asked what was the situation. Zhou Yunqing said twice, "Thief." They were all beheaded by myself. Xiaotian waved his big hand with a smile. It was a false alarm. Everyone has worked hard. Let's go back to eat. But the leaders of the barbecue think that this place is no longer safe. The first thing to do is to go back early to be safe. It doesn't matter. The thieves are all arrested. This little girl killed all the daughters and succeeded to the throne. Hearing this, everyone opened their mouths. They thought Xiaotian was going to be late, Zhongling, but he was so jealous that Xiaotian was not only obsessed with seeking pleasure, but also told her little girl to stop in front of him. Zhonglin, don't let him beat Xiaotian to death. But it's beyond everyone's expectations. Zhang Wenjing followed Xiaotian obediently. He was so cute that he was like a little follower, and even turned around to tell them to catch up with the successors. All of them were stunned. When did the Major General have such a good temper? When he went back to the barbecue, before. Zhang Ling obediently sat by the side and waited on Xing Xing to eat the roast suckling pig. His eyes widened again in awe. They said it was just suspicion. I'm afraid the Major General in front of me is not pretending to stop. At this time, I asked Zhongling who arrested him just now. You seem to know him very well. He is the leader. The person named Liang Sheng used to be the bandit leader of the Wild Wolf. It was a test for him as a coming-of-age ceremony given by his mother, unexpectedly. He has now become the killers in the office building. They robbed the prince. The target is a woman. This time, they failed in their mission. They will definitely come again within 7 days. Hearing that, Xiaoting was already on the side seat, and seeing Xiaotian's expression, he thought it was fear. So he suggested that he stay here for a while. Do not go out in the palace. Killer Yulu didn't dare to trespass. Xiaoting's eyes lit up and immediately responded to the leader's idea. The corners of the mouths of the other women twitched slightly. How scared is this prince? Only Zhongling's expression was strange. But what he was thinking about was, Prince, how unwilling you are to make a move. Then Xiaotian took Zhong Ming and said that he was going to. After strolling around and digesting for a while, Xiaotian came to a cliff and looked at Fang Cheng. Suddenly he asked Zhongli, the odd just now is talking about these things behind your back. Let the people suffer. What does it mean if you are in trouble? What does it mean in Chinese? Looking back, Li Jingwei, who was packing up his things in the distance, couldn't help but twitch his brows. You idiots. King Qin can hear it. After tidying up my mood, I finally explained to Xiaoting that the prince is limited to the size of the building, and that he is unscrupulous and unscrupulous. This mission failed. They may slaughter the people as usual, and force the officials to give them protection, so stop the protection fee. What do you mean? It turns out that there are often some clean and honest officials in the DPRK and China who touch some places and resistance, so they offer rewards for righting people with the protection of the court. They have nothing to do with these officials, so they massacre the people and force the court, even if the court can only pay protection fees to let them. The office building was revoked and the first floor was chosen. The former king of Qin, who was eating two ends, failed in this mission, according to the inertia. They will continue to attack you if the attack fails. Massacre the common people, ask for protection money, build an office building. These guys don't care about martial arts at all. Xiao Tian's face was also a little depressed. But what did he think of in the next second, if you know Ryan about this? He knows that his strength is still weak. Will you let me take care of some things? Everyone complained in their hearts. Are you afraid that you are right? What do you mean by these three words? Misunderstood, but he could only nod honestly. Xiao Tian's face suddenly became serious, thinking that if he made a move, he would. If you don't expose your strength, the common people will be massacred to 16. A war will be triggered because of me. Zi Zhouyan will definitely repair me, regardless of whether I make a move or not. As long as Zi Yan makes a move, the days of my clothes to stretch out my hands and mouth to open my mouth will come to an end. Thinking of this, Xiao Tian felt too terrible. Going to play Ruin Fan, I can't afford to lose it. Then he clenched his fists and said viciously, everyone who called Zhulu on him was killed. He is the only you in the mainland today. However, he secretly summoned a man without cultivation from another world to be his assistant. But he didn't know that the man came from a high school. Now coming to this low-level defending champion, he is still invincible without the suppression of the Dao rules. But at this time he just wants to eat the empress. However, just now he blew the whistle that affected his eating of soft rice. In order to be able to eat this soft rice safely, Xiao Tian decided to destroy this trigger. When Xiao Ting came to a place, looked around and found no one, he threw Zhongling away. He carried it on his shoulders and galloped into the air with all his strength. At this moment, he was finally stunned that Xiao Ting was relying only on his physical strength. Just rushed into the air and jumped several times like this. Xiao Tian found the skill of flying and immediately brought the bell to a certain place quickly. Flying in the direction, the speed made everyone cry in fright. The critical point stopped accelerating, and when it was finally in a daze, it stopped to indicate that it had reached its destination. Zhongling looked around in confusion. There was nothing nearby. He just watched Xiao Tian clenched his fist and punched forward. In the next second, the sky seemed to be emerald green, revealing the lines inside the car. And then there was a crash like a shattered mirror slipping and collapsing. In the illusion, buildings floating in the air were revealed. After arriving at the castle in the air, Xiao Tian asked Zhang Ming to follow him closely, so as not to get lost. Zhang Ling followed and asked, what should we do next? Are we going to sneak into it? Xiao Tian did clean it up for a month. With one kick, the door was smashed to pieces. All the assassins in the hall looked at Xiao Tian, the unexpected guest, who followed him. I finally realized that the weakest of those people are... I was terrified in my predicament. Who are you? We adults. Everyone in the world. What is there about a coquettish woman? I was blasted to pieces by the horror complete works. And then a pair of weird pupils lit up, a kind of killer who hasn't reacted yet. They were all beheaded on the spot. The eyeballs around them nearly moved. Don't do it. BB's movement here quickly attracted the people on the upper floor. And finally they couldn't breathe when they saw the person coming. Get up in a hurry. The Yanbian killer and the Nam Pen killer didn't expect there to be such a top killer in the middle of the sub-building. As soon as I recognized Xiao Ting and Zhongling, I naturally understood what was going on. but they didn't take the two people from the north. Your information is very detailed. I am afraid that the Emperor dynasty has you. So it seems that your plan does not want to stop and shoot slowly. The three non-pen killers in front of them snorted coldly and pulled out a dagger from one room, just about to strike. A terrifying coercion came from the surge in Xiaotian's body, instantly covered the entire empty island, and the three fell to their knees powerlessly on the ground with a plop. The Alliance said it was all a misunderstanding. Begging Xiaotian to spare his life, Xiaotian smiled wryly and shook his head. I just want to live a stable life. Be an idle good man, you gotta send someone to trouble me. And let me know about your almond boss army compound. Coveted. You're not forcing me to trust you. Why do you keep forcing me to calm down? Under the anger of a group of bastards, the killer in Phnom Penh was evaporated in an instant, while the two Yanbian killers on the side warned that the entire territory would be affected. The two of them had only one idea before they collapsed and died. The idiot of the intelligence department, although this monster will be useless. The intelligence departments. People can no longer hear the Great Depression. After restraining his breath, he found Zhongling lying limply on the ground. He couldn't help but wonder. Said that the little girl is so young. What's the matter with such a false body? With Xiaotian's support, Zhongling barely stood up. But I was really depressed in my heart, my lord prince. Don't you know your abilities? Then they went to the top of the building to think. See if there are any fish that escaped the net. After opening the door, the baby inside almost blinded his Chinese and looked at the one in front of him. Wolf can't help but sigh with emotion, killing people, setting fires, golden belts, cities talking nonsense. Stop. The voice of reprimand interrupts his words. We come to destroy the patrol and divide it. That is to eliminate harm for the people. What is Quangfu Zhengyi to relieve His Majesty's worries? While talking, let the system give all these things, too. Seeing Xiaotian's actions, I finally couldn't bear to ask him about you, my lord. Think about it carefully. They kidnapped me, poisoning words and insults as a victim. The compensation is not too much. It is not too much to hear that these smart people are stiff. They are not too much for the evil plots of the Daying dynasty and the treasonous things that have been committed all the time. The King Gangban, as the husband of His Majesty, has not charged some fines. No problem, no problem. They said that the killer on the first floor first forced me to destroy them, wasted my rest time, and now they are still persecuting me to destroy them. I don't care about my hard work. I finally swallowed it. Spit on this. Who dares to disagree? After throwing it away, he finally recognized that it was a precious time defense prisoner. He didn't understand why Xiaotian was going to do it. It turned out that Xiaotian, after finding out about the Xinglu headquarters, I couldn't help but say that I won't fly fast. I'm afraid I can't wait for dinner, and I'm afraid of the fast middle-aged body. No, with this flu, there should be no problem. Xiaotian once again refreshed the speed at which the weather that flew out of Zhu Mingtang's shoulder and then exploded with a whooping sound. Knowing China's cognition, she felt that even the equipment defense Fulu couldn't bear it. And it didn't take long for Xiaotian to land on the ground. There is a huge blood-colored attic floating on this island, and several buildings are connected by chains around the island. There is also a bloody attic on the island. This is the headquarters of the office building. The two just fell to the ground, one black. They suddenly appeared in the surroundings and surrounded them. And then two golden killers came out from the gate, and finally, I can feel that the aura of these two people is far stronger than the people who were distributed before. I have thought about who the sudden visitor would be, but I never thought it would be the frog from the Dayuan dynasty and the neutral pair. As soon as the voice fell, a figure appeared in front of everyone, and everyone saw the person and knelt down on one knee to see the person. Finally recognized that this person is Zi Yunlu's host, Nanhuang's killer Wang Yunzhang. Yunfeng put his arrogant hands behind his back and took him down. Be a little gentle when he did it. Don't hurt others. The big Phnom Penh killer pulled everyone away, wanting to show that he wants to have fun with Xiaotian first. Xiaotian stood on the spot and moved, but his eyes drifted away. He listened carefully to the sound of breathing around him, and confirmed the entire situation. The distribution of personnel in the headquarters of the building. Avoids that some people will escape and expose the news when the hands are ready. At this time, the big man arrives in front of Shouting. It seems that the prince of the adult dynasty is more powerful than he imagined. To be bigger, even I don't pay attention to Xiaotian. Facing the big man's yelling, he doesn't mind, pointing his finger at his temple. The words of the Great Depression. May everyone dare not see the big man for a long time without making a move. And the corners of his mouth curled up. All of a sudden, the big man roared and a group called Xiaotian fainted. And the huge impact resounded throughout the whole place, floating in the air. But the killers surrounded by them almost want to stare out their eyeballs, Ling Yun always reveals, with a frightened expression. It turns out that the small patio was able to lower the big guy with just one finger. All this hard work has failed, didn't you? Eat, can you use your strength to hear Xiaoting's words? The big man seemed to have been humiliated so much and used his whole body again. He punched him with all his strength. But nothing changed in the result. Xiaoting shook his finger. What are you doing? I told you. Frenzied punch after punch by the martyr's hunk bombarded forward. And the violent impact of the anti-intelligent hunk. His arms, at least his tiger's mouth, collapsed. And the cracked tomato juice sprayed out, flying upside down and hitting the ground with both arms. The scenic spot couldn't see the original shape at this time. The big man was very heartbroken. Tears of grievance welled up in my eyes. Thinking that the bastards in the intelligence department are all brain dead? What kind of bullshit information did you collect? On the contrary, it will subside to such an extent that you won't be able to beat yourself up. Why did you beat yourself up to tears? Xiaotian is also very big at this time. This group of people. Can't you just move? I can find out what this means. At this time, the system explained that your body is still growing and strengthening, and you cannot cultivate. You belong to an ordinary person without a realm. Caused a cognitive error. Stopped at the moment and stopped chatting with them. He clenched his fists and punched Shuquan through the air. The popular air cannon turns the small island in the distance into a beautiful fireworks in the sky. The killers all around are scared to the brim. I don't know who is yelling to beg everyone. And in an instant, it turns into an afterimage and screams at the sky in all directions. The experience will let them succeed. They will disappear in the same place as soon as they move. Dozens of Xiaoting will appear in front of those killers. The head of the station in front of him. Wipe them into big gray men. Seeing this scene, he didn't pick it up in one breath and hung up like that. The thing is, you are a killer today. And you will be depressed on the weekend. My lord, can you spare my life? Good things are by your side. Finally recognize the identity of this woman. This person is good at seducing men, and then when the target enters the tender land, when the chest is cut open, the starting salary is. When he was worried about whether Xiaotian could resist. When tempted, Xiaoti exuded a strong aura. The charming woman was shocked and fell to the ground for a while. Such a vicious mind, even if you beg for mercy. You still say that if you give the girl away, what do you think? The lifestyle of the 5 members is not good. So what should I do to build roads? The prince enjoys a happy and contented life. The more you talk, the more excited you get. And you slap him with anger. Before the woman died, her eyes were wide open. He really just wants to survive. And then there is only one person left, at this time. Under the bed in a room in Shinran's old headquarters, there is a majestic killer. The king sits here shivering. His heart is also broken at this moment. He's a monster, obviously, isn't he? The forbidden body of ordinary people is ridiculously strong. Suddenly the sound of footsteps reappeared in the corridor outside the room. Yun Zhenlai was frightened and hurried. Holding his breath, he didn't move at all, after a long time. The outside became quiet again, and he finally left Yun Zhenlai. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief, but when he was eating, he saw Xiaotian lying beside him grinning at him and found you. Damn, Yun Zhenlai was so frightened that he almost lost his wits. But he still reacted in time and immediately turned into a puff of smoke, disappearing in front of Xiaoting, the first time he escaped. He blew up the resignation building, just when Yun Zhenlai thought Xiaotian couldn't get out. Make Xiaotian appear in front of Yuan Kunlai. A man is obviously an invincible existence. But he only wants to eat the soft food of a beautiful woman's wife. So he hides his strength and does it. Trash in someone else's eyes. However, he was kidnapped by a killer to force the girl to submit. In order to be able to eat this soft meal safely, Xiao Tian came directly to killed the killer's headquarters and wiped out all the killers. As the king of killers in the southern wilderness, he hid under the bed and shivered, trembling but still being silenced to find something like holding it in her hand like a little chicken. She asked why the other party was so focused on the principles of the Yuan dynasty. Seeing this, Xiao Tian gave up and directly wiped off Yun Zhenlai's neck. According to this, the blood. They all disappeared completely in the world. Chinese looked at Xiao Tian, who was so decisive in killing and attacking, and his heart trembled. Mother, the prince is so scary. I think after going home for a while. The shattered pieces of the office building fell into the lower, and one of the raised mountain steles on which was inscribed, with extremely large characters, Yan Wang Xingtai and Zhongling also returned to the previous forest. To resolve the soft rice crisis, Xingzan was in a good mood, and greeted Zhonglin to go back to have dinner, in Chinese. He asked curiously what Yan Wang meant. Xiao Ting suddenly stopped in my hometown. There is a saying in my hometown. The king of Hades will let you die with 3 pieces of gold. The way of speaking, Zhongling was shocked, and immediately put his legs together and responded loudly. It's Xiao Tian's expression that immediately eased up, and he wanted to reach out and rub it. Rubbing the famous head, not bad. Children must obediently listen to adults. This behavior made Zhang Mengshu's eyes red and muttered, thinking that I don't want to kiss you. I'm very depressed, and teased without looking back. A while earlier, the two of them returned to the temporary small camp before and saw Xiao Tian patted his chest and heaved a sigh of relief after entering the door. I finally found Zhongling, who was given to me by His Majesty as a token of love and righteousness. So I just watched silently and stopped talking nonsense. Going home for dinner. Xiao Tian ordered again to take the lead on the way out of the mountain, always the next morning. Ayun looked like a girl, pretended but wanted to go out but was stopped by his father. The Central Police. Zhongling explained that he was ordered by His Majesty to take care of the prince. Now he was about to enter the palace, and the guards heard this. And Yang Ming looked confused. This is me, who only likes to wear strong clothes. In addition, she heard that the prince is just looking for pleasure and doing nothing. When you heard the central government talk about Xiao Tian, Zhongling immediately said partly that you didn't get along with the prince. How could you comment on others at will? He turned his head and ran away. Seeing the contrast between his daughter and the old father, he felt a little uncomfortable. At this moment, Xiao Tian was standing by the side, looking at Altman enjoying the service of the maid. This life is not too pleasant. Li Yan on the side is wrinkled. Your Majesty is frowning, fighting bloody battles on the front line, but her husband is just looking for fun. But when he saw Zhongling walking over in a red dress, he was stunned. This is the one he knew. Major General? Xiao Tai also looked at Zhongling with a puzzled face. What are you doing here, little girl? And finally said that he is, according to His Majesty's request, to protect the King of Qin. Xiao Ting let him stay cool with a disgusted face. He didn't want Zhongling. Stay by my side. In case one day I make a mistake and expose myself, it will be over. And even Xiao Tian will die for weeks after he finished speaking. Be quiet and leave a message. Wondering if the prince is looking for death, according to the general's temper. Should we stop him when he makes a move? The point was beyond everyone's expectations. Zhongling just stood aside and refused to leave. This scene made all opportunities dumbfounded, especially when Li Yan saw the expression of the Chinese. His heart skipped a beat. I am afraid that the Major General will be true. It is true that there is an opportunity to report to Liu Yan on the back of the County Yunlu branch, but when Liu Yan reported the matter to everyone, the Chinese is not the same. The calmness of the face and this reaction made Liu Yan wei unable to fix it. Isn't the Major General surprised at all? It means he was taken aback. Hastily and embarrassingly explained that he just started. Xiao Ting, the melon-eating crowd, twitched the corners of his mouth. This little kid is too fake. The truth will be revealed in minutes. But at this time the rumors are not at all the joy of revenge, but worried that the king of killers will go. The battlefield is looking for trouble for you. While talking, I found out that the Chinese is actually laughing. After paying attention, I'm confused. Could it be that Zhongling is already fell into Xiao Zhan's blue, fell ahead of time? Realized that he was him, Jolin subconsciously wanted to tell the truth to him. When I opened my mouth, I was greeted with a slap. If you have a brain to face the national crisis, you still have a playful smile on your face, make a mistake and get beaten. You have to stand up straight and have the face to cry. It was only then that Chinese realized that he had almost slipped his mouth. Xiao Ting completely disregarded Liu Yi, who had already petrified by the side. Tell her not to know herself like a child like Zhong Ning, so she should educate him well and say that there are signs on the street to follow. I used to look like Zhongling, who was in the good baby class. Left a message and realized that the problem of Chinese is much more serious than I thought. The screen turned to the northern frontier. This is the Empress received 2 letters from the imperial city, which were written by Liu Yi and Zhong Yaoming. The main content is 2. One is about Yunlu Fenglu being destroyed by a strange strong man. The other is that Zhongling is addicted to Xiaoting, blue and meticulous every day, dressed up and willing to accompany you. Seeing this, Xiao Ting's appearance emerges in your mind, saying nodding is quite close, but once thinking of what was said in the letter, the woman snorted softly, feeling a little bit of incompetence in her heart. And she was even more furious when she hit the wall in front of you with your fist. Dead girl. If you don't hit me when you go back, your ass is blooming. My old lady is not your mother. Suddenly he noticed the whole city wall trembled slightly. He looked at the place he just took in wonder. My picture is so big, mighty. But soon he finds that the vibrations are coming from afar. The buried army is charging towards success. Above, an old man with a skin pocket and a bone mask is suspended in midair. Quick response here. Your money to deal with the Eastern and Western Zhouyi twins are staying at the gate of the city. In an instant, the woman's side passes by the man in the front, standing and directly appearing at the man. Although the embassy of the party school is reluctant in front of the holy envoy, the man's prosperity is caught by the tomato juice of this mechanism. Suddenly, a burning red color appeared in front of the man Shengshi. The empress's red barrier that suddenly appeared in front of him, trying to get out of the trap for you every 10 days and a half months. What do I mean? You can't break through the northern trap. The Black Soul of Yan has offered a group of prices that the old man can't refuse. Let me hold you back. The old man with the black bastard's poisonous claws must have arrived. There is room in the territory to hear this. The aura in the body is completely violent. The murderous sound of the aluminum ingots on the mango platform resounded around the entire battlefield. Frost looked up and saw the Empress's trapped expression. Just don't worry about guarding the border. And don't let the white people break through. At this time, the female emperor in the feudal system forced herself to calm down, and now she is facing blood. Lu might get it, and Black Soul read the old man's threat. He must find a way to get out of trouble as soon as possible. Good member agreed to Huang Chao. Let the loss be minimized, and at this time, the youth of the Yuan dynasty, Shang Xiaotian, was lying comfortably on the ground and hiccuping. Beside him was a huge stock price, which was finally seen from the corner of his mouth. I couldn't help convulsing for a while. My lord prince, you are too good to eat, right? Digested well. I couldn't stop picking my teeth. And answered casually. In fact, it's because his body is too powerful to digest. Only you can't think of it without him. It was Xiaotian who found the guest book and was about to go back. When he was full, after asking, he found out that Zhongling asked her to go. The youth Zizi from Kinglian Town picked it up and gave it to him. Chang Xiaoting was a little surprised. It's near here, yes. I think Sister Liu must also want to tell Xuyuan's negative good news. That she is looking at Xiao Zhongli Mei. Xiao Ting sighed helplessly. Can you calm down and stop making me look like a terrible villain? Xiao Ting's vicious look is too impressive. Looking at the small town at the foot of the mountain, the food there must be not bad. So he asked Zhongling to take him to Kinglian Town to euphemistically call it a field trip. Relying on a statue, the body was filled with light behind him. A protective shield enveloped the entire Kinglian Town. Suddenly, Liu Yan vomited. Blood splashed on the statue, and not far in front of him. Two men in black robes were slowly approaching him. It seems that the Great Yuan dynasty, the Empress Jingwei regiment, is not very good. It's the casino old man from the Black Soul shop and his lover who loves to put on lipstick. The epiphysis risked being killed. Liu Yanqi flicked a finger lightly. An invisible shock wave hit his muscles and bones. And the red hat flew out, far away. At this time, Liu Yan, who had his eyes closed, didn't notice the building materials museum for a long time. When he opened his eyes, he found that Xiaoting didn't know when he came to his side. The little girl cut him off and got the order. Zhou Ming rode the long knife in his hand and fought with the ancient red hat. At this time, Xiaotian took out a pill from the side, asked Liu Yanfu to take it, and left a message, anxiously asking Xiaotian to call Zhongming to take it. He would die if he left and stayed here. At this time, he asked Wang Kai how the old man's strength knew. 80% of peaks are good at poisonous art, and Xiaotian's complexion is a little dignified. This strength is only based on Zhonglin's 5th level and 3rd level strength. Surely I can't when Liu Yan is just watching me. And I can't make a move now, but he is a veteran who obeys the orders of the Empress. If he, knowing my strength, can you not talk to the girl? When the girl asks me to help, I will not help my friend, once nominated. Spend money. Liu Yan to watch, looking at Xiaotian's expression. He thought it was because he was afraid that he would let him go even if he said that he would die. But Xiaotian just wanted to slap him at this moment. When the old man was shot to death, the battle between the two had reached a fever pitch. Finally, Nakabayashi saw the opportunity and killed the bone at the first sight. Flew out with the blanks. Even a guy like you dare to come here to act wildly, my lord, Zhongling said arrogantly. Clap your hands and stab at the opponent's throat. As soon as you see it, suddenly, a purple-black aura blocks this episode, and the aura turns into little snakes climbed up to the fitness center and hurriedly flung the long sword out of their hands, quickly retreating to Liu Yan's side. The deep old man still walked to Gu Hongmao's side, and then looked at Xiaotian's romance at the beginning of the film. Although Wan Xiaotian is an ordinary, the good-for-nothing wins. When the handsome girl finds a guy like you, but Zhongling, who lives in Yitong because of the rare stuff, has her husband die of illness. The poor two guys don't even know that the horror of His Majesty the Prince is the clock. You smell Xiaoqin. There was a strong smell of alcohol coming from his body. And then Xiaotian walked out with a pale face and sweating profusely. How many old people are like Yuan Bai? I want to use a secret of raindrops and a name. The old man once poisoned the entire city with a wave of his hands. But now the poison released by his burning life is used by Xiaotian to apply a mask. Xiaoting is very excited about the effect of Kobe Bryant. As long as he looks more handsome, he will be even more handsome. It is convenient to tempt you and ask the old man how many times the remaining lifespan is enough for him to cast the one just now. And even suggested to him, offered a life-extending elixir to keep him making this skincare for himself in the future. The old man opened his mouth and trembled all over. He didn't know whether he was angry or afraid that his poison would win even the stone steps. It's unbelievable for a strong man. But now he is being treated as a skincare product by the other party, and even forced himself to become her skincare tool. It was a shame and a great humiliation. The old man pointed at Xiaotian and trembled for a long time, and finally slapped himself on the head and went. Xiaoting was a little confused. Why did this old man commit suicide? Zhongling and Liu Bian behind him had already told the truth. One of them was killed by King Qi Qidao like this. Xiaotian looked at him innocently. I was thinking, how could I spare his life? Suicide. Hearing this, the corners of the mouths of the two twitched. At this moment, I really want to persuade Xiaotian to be a person. After Xiaoting looked at this, the battlefield was thinking about how to destroy the corpses and wipe out the traces, but this time the movement was really a bit big. Xiaotian suddenly pointed to a place and asked Chinese medicine, which is it? Not in the direction of Daying Dynasty. After Zhang Ling nodded, he saw Xiao Tiankai accumulating energy, and then Xiao Ting punched him. The hurricane brought by the forward bombardment directly blows Zhang Ling and Liu Yan away, finally waiting for this. The movement disappeared. Xiao Tian blew forward again, and in an instant, a strong wind appeared, blowing away the omnivores in front of him. When the person sees the front clearly, he slumps on the ground and runs. The Chinese medicine doctor grabs Xingxing, so he doesn't fall to his knees. Your Excellency, how do you understand the word destroying corpses and destroying traces? Xin Shaotian is obviously very satisfied with his masterpiece, completely changing the landscape and environment without seeing any traces of the past is called destroying corpses and exterminating traces. But Zhang Ling looked at the scene in front of him. The wide flat land where the three mountains that were originally there have completely disappeared at this moment. After the matter was settled, Xiao Tianqiu waved his hand again. And I went to the nearby forest to wait to deal with the matter of King Lian town. Remember to bring the wine and talk, and lead Zhongying to the nearby forest. Liu Yan looked at Xiao Tian, who was really different from the prince, then left a message and started to move towards King Lian town. Started to clear it slowly. Once lifted, a group of civilians with various weapons rushed out. As soon as they came out, they were stunned. Deleted Dashan, why is it gone? Liu Yan walked up to the mayor with a smile, told them that they were safe, and then took. When the people went back, many people were still in a dazed state, constantly talking about why the mountain disappeared. When Liu Yan hung, but it's already dark in Chinese. At this moment excitedly tell the message about Xiao Tian, don't write a building to be Liu Yan. When he heard that, Xiao Tian had terrible hearing. His face suddenly became frightened, because he realized that he had secretly said, Xiao Ting's bad words may have been heard by him, which is not bad. Finally, Xiao Tian's voice floated over slowly, of course, I can hear you coming home. Didn't you complain that I am a disaster for the country and the people? Is it difficult to seduce your majesty with male sex? Are you or me eating from a bowl and looking at the pot to provoke you? Little brat, leave a message. And the whole person instantly petrifies on the spot, the next second, kneeling down on the ground. He kept apologizing to Xiao Ting and Zhu Ming. Fortunately, Xiao Ting was not a petty person. But in the end, it was because of his fault. Responding to Xiao Tian's surprise, he could hear rumors even in the palace. And what he said at home was doubtful about Chinese medicine. Xiao Tian also added, secretly telling you that Sister Liu is always talking about it behind her back. It's a whole large shooting scene, and Xiao Tian, who is walking in front, is having fun and then let you complain about me killing you. Xiao Tian pointed to Zhongfu to let Zhongming go home. When he returned to the gate of the imperial city, he didn't want to recite Chinese every night. Parents. But Zhang Ling grabbed Xiao Ting's arm and acted like a spoiled child. Xingxing didn't want to eat his set, just shook off his hand and went home honestly. I don't know how to cherish my meals. I grew up without a father or a mother. I was adopted on the tip of a knife to make a living. You little brat, living in the blessing. I don't know how to be blessed. When they heard this, their expressions were all cheered up. At this time, they finally stopped insisting and promised to be good. After returning home for dinner, Xiao Tian rubbed everyone's heads with satisfaction and just about to say something, an angry voice came from. While hearing what he was doing, he turned his head and saw that it was Zhang Ming, who hurried over and immediately pointed at Xiao Tian angrily. Said, Prince, you are His Majesty's husband. How can you do such a thing? You are worthy of your majesty. Hearing this sighed immediately after leaving a message. I am not happy that Master Zhang kisses Master Wang and the Major General are innocent. How can you open your mouth to slander at will? How can your husband, who is a general and in a high position, accuse you indiscriminately against the prince so that I treat you like this? Disappointed, Yang Ming was stunned and fell to the ground with a face full of shock. The name left a misunderstanding and did not explain much. It just told Zhang Ming not to judge a person based on his performance. It was angrily that Lord Queking Wang advised me to stay at home and spend more time with my father. Xiao Tian didn't want to stay in the rain any longer. Yang Ming said goodbye, then turned and left. Zhongling also followed Liu Yan angrily. Yao Ming clutched his head with a headache. Heaven knows what's wrong, heaved a long sigh. Just about to get up, he saw the three of shouting, standing in front of him with a smile on his face. The picture turned and Xiao Tian looked at the big meal in front of him. His eyes were shining brightly. It turned out that Xiao Tian heard about it. My lord's handicraft is very good. That's why I wanted to come here and taste the abnormality at this time. The expression of the central name eased a lot after a period of time. Observing him, he found that his daughter had no admiration for Xiao Tian, but only admiration and smell. But I don't understand that my daughter sent someone to say that the prince should stop eating and immediately be overwhelmed by this delicacy. This is called life. This is called life. After 3 tours with wine, Zhou Yangming saw that Xiao Ting seemed to have something to say. So he directly, in the opening, Shang Shubin Wang has a merciless request. That is, can I come to your house to eat and eat your handmade ones? The method, your skill is amazing. Calm down and let me be your cook. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. Yang Ming just wanted to speak shouting. I slapped my palm on the table and raised my palm to see an inner ring placed on the table. I personally offer 1 million for a temporary payment. The household department used it in the disaster relief. For the refugees in the south, Yao Ming's expression immediately became serious. Prince, what are you doing tomorrow just to rest? Pick the ingredients yourself to ensure that you eat happily and satisfactorily, and at the same time let you finally buy yourself a set of cooks tomorrow. You must know this. It's always been her biggest headache not to leave a name. Now the prince solves it directly, even if she calls herself his father. The message and Zhong Ling were stunned. Why didn't they find that the central name has such a unique skill of changing faces? This is the central name. The ring asked worriedly, is it okay for now? Don't worry. These snacks are someone else's accidental compensation. The central name was very surprised by this. Who offended the prince would have to pay so much money? Xiao Tian sighed and said it was all. Whisper about the past, then don't say anything. Don't say I gave it to you. This is private money. Let His Majesty know that it is not very good to hear the expression of a man who immediately revealed the central name, and then he took the money for the ring and said that he would keep it a secret. After the two chatted for a while, Xiang Xin suddenly asked Yao Ming's plan, how to dispose of the food and items in use, and build some temporary houses so that they have a place to farm and harvest Xiaotian. I shook my head at this idea. Sorry. It's too wasteful and prone to accidents. Why don't you try to work for relief? Just a little bit of doubt. Xiaotian continued to explain that the gang of refugees in southern Xinjiang lacked everything, but no shortage of people. Why the money was not used to hire. Instead of letting a large group of people gather together to idle and cause trouble, they would rather exchange money for food items as salary, hire them to repair bridges and repair roads, reclaim wasteland and feed them. The uncle who built the building has no extra energy to make a fuss. Why not do it? And this method can separate and disperse the refugees from the same hometown, and avoid the people who know each other from getting together to be brave. When a hippie heard this, the central nation was struck by lightning. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this method was very good. He waved his hand and patted it. The chest guarantees that the king of Qin will be greedy in the future. Even if I say hello to others, I dare not say this skill, said the second. Xiaotian had a smile on his face at this moment. And the one who was waiting was you. This king wants to eat supper later. Zhou Yang's name is Zhong Ling, and Liu Yan, who happily agreed to go to Yitang, looked at Xiaotian in shock, as if this was the first time they knew Xiaotian. At this time, Zhou Lishuang stood on the city wall in the Beijing battlefield, looking solemnly at the empress in the phalanx. At this time, the empress was sitting cross-legged in the aura of the town. I met a strong sense of the aura of my daughter. Jiaxu's play is not good. The empress is going to break through and be promoted to the 9th rank. She immediately calls everyone to evacuate Silicon Valley and snorts coldly. Thinking of your eyes suddenly opened. Pupils filled with ice-cold colors, the surrounding peaks and forests suddenly cracked. Looking at the speed, the cold wave brought by the fleeing Jiaxu, and all the sword chi bursting out on the platform engulfed the fleeing Jiaxu along the way. Zhu, who was running away from a male soldier, suddenly noticed the sweat coming from behind his back. The moment he turned his head, his pupils said that he quickly waved his hands and applauded without hesitation, burning his own blood. The blood was burning like turning into rays of light, condensing into a status quo is still facing the sword chi in the air. And the false needs that are cut in an instant with a fist and the sword chi are even cut by the sword chi. It flew out directly and fell directly into the mountains below, even smashing a big hole in the ground and still remaining half alive. At this time, Jiaxu was horrified and did not pursue and kill these people. Now it seems that there is no time to waste on these people. He went back to the city wall and ordered the deputy general to stay behind to deal with the aftermath, and then grabbed the prime minister and said to head towards the imperial city of the Yuan dynasty at full speed. Fly away. He is the most beautiful woman on the mainland today, but married a good-for-nothing man to be her husband. He even flirted with the female guard in the street. But this scene was caught by the empress in the street. Zhongli and Shuang rushed to Kilian Mountains, and both of them froze in midair. What do you think about the 3 mountains where young people make money? Your observation. The 3 mountains guessed for a moment are the. What's even more frightening about being beaten to ashes is that he can't see the slightest trace. Even the strong beast on the stone steps. It can be seen that the two came to Kinglian town, pretending to be casual, and after a little inquiring, they found out that Liu Yan was also arrested. As soon as I got involved in this matter, I was ready to go to Liu Yan to ask clearly. It can be seen that both of them heard the familiar voice and followed along. Looking at the voice, it was the message in their mouths. Together with Xiaoting and Zhongyu. Of course Xiaoting noticed something. See murderous, but when he looked over, the person standing in front of him was not himself. His daughter-in-law, Dr. Zhou, roared even more angrily. Mrs. Zhongling didn't get spanked these days, didn't she hear this? The voice Zhongling trembled with fright and left a message. Then he crawled to the finish line and whispered to me that he had misunderstood him and Xiaotian before. I even wrote a letter to Zhang King. Xiaotian got anxious when he heard it and said, "Isn't your mother hurting me?" Dr. Zhou was already angrily walking towards the center. Everyone was so frightened that they hurriedly hid behind Xiaoting, but Xiaotian was eyelid tickets. This Nima is not a drug. It will be more serious. Chinese. I beg Xiaoting to help her block it. Your Majesty is here. He won't. Hands on you. The neutral Shuang came to Xiaoting and coldly asked Xiaoting to open his eyes to see the 2-meter-tall neutral Shuang with well-developed muscles. Horror is simply like that of King Kong Barbie. Xiaotian had no choice but to bite the bullet and say in public, "It's not good to hit a child. I like the song of double fists. I only want to be a prince. I'm telling you for His Majesty's sake, but it doesn't mean that I dare not make a move." Hearing this, Zhang Ning was so frightened that he immediately rushed out and hugged his mother, telling him to hit him if he wanted to. The coke pissed off Xiaotian, accidentally lost control and beat his own mother to death. But what should I do? The message on the side also scared me. I had to hurry to let Dr. Zhang's assistant see the unbelievable expressions of the two of them and mistaken them for his daughter. Who is it with Xiaotian at this time? The surrounding people also approached Xiaoting and asked Xiaotian, "What's the matter with Xiaotian?" Qi Meng said that they were all acquaintances. Let them all see Xiaoting on the internet, so the common people dispersed on their own. Dr. Zhou was on the sidelines. I was very surprised to see that these people are all men. Could it be that she eats all men and women? Then Xiaotian followed the empress and they returned. Huang Cheng. Xiaotian has been looking at his daughter-in-law from the back all the time, and he is full of emotions, or his daughter-in-law looks so beautiful. The devil's body is so beautiful even with a veil on it. Looking at Xiaotian's drooling unconsciously, looking at it, turning his head to look at Xiaotian. He was very curious about what Xiaoting had done. The young people are so supportive of him. Hearing his daughter-in-law's question, Xiaotian was so happy that he opened his mouth. When a woman starts to be curious about a man, it means he loses. But the girl looked dazed and forced herself to ask him a question. and not answer it. So what are she still doing there? Xiaotian is this. I casually answered that if I spend money, I will pay for them to build roads for them. Where did you get the money? If the performance is good, it belongs to you. The expenses are not much, Your Majesty. Don't forget that I'm your husband. I'm receiving gifts and I'm soft-hearted. Shouting. Just looking for it casually. An excuse. The Empress didn't doubt this, but snorted coldly. It seems that there are quite a lot of rich people in our court, but Jinping's road construction will not make the common people feel suspicious of you, Zhang Ling on the side hastily explained. Because His Majesty the Prince can make the people of Kinglian Town live a good life. The wine in the room is delicious. But being undisciplined in the imperial city can only make life better for the common people. After the packaging, I heard Li Yi and finally uttered a part of the advertisement. The youth landscape has been on the water for a long time, and the quality is 100 years and 90 years old. The 9 daughters of the 9 youth members of the town say that they have the title of His Majesty after drinking it. Plus the Minister of the Household Department, please sit down. Xingyeju has changed its name to Young Girl, after all. It has become the most high-end drink in the imperial city. Now a jar of wine is hard to buy. The perfect cooperation between Li Yi and Zhang Ling. Xiaoting decided to start the final finishing touch. Your Majesty will use your name on the young people's journey. It is really a last resort, after all. I am just someone who has no strength to say that. The woman snorted softly and said domineeringly, that you are my man, my lord, and no one has the right to judge you. What Lung Queen, if anyone? Glands are good at what they do. Stop for a while and get purged so you don't want to be damned. Ah, come, someone replaced my bowl of soft rice with iron. And then flattered me, thank you for sinking fish, falling geese, closing the moon. Shameful flowers, overwhelming the country. Your Majesty, the unparalleled lady in the world, could hear this series of compliments, frowning slightly, retracting her gaze, and speaking glibly. Zheng has always disliked this kind of rhetoric. But the corners of his mouth did rise slightly, and this secretive movement was indeed stopped. The subsidy seems to be its son dear wife who is a daughter-in-law. But she still likes her in her heart. Then Dr. Zhong invited her to meet with her, having a simple meal at home in the region. The Empress is also pleased with your cooking skills in the central government, naturally. She readily agreed, so a group of people then came. Xiaoting looked at the Empress's back and felt that her strength seemed to have improved again after asking the king. She learned about the Empress' current state and the salary couldn't help but praise my wife again. When a group of people came to the back hall, 11 attractive aromas of vegetables wafted away. When Dr. Zhou came over, he immediately laughed happily, thinking that his younger sister noticed that he came back and cooked for himself. Unsealing Chinese followed behind. Not daring to say anything, some things are not known to be happy, just walked into the room. And my heart felt it. The central door of the cave behind him did not turn back and said, "Little brother, today you were considered lucky and got a piece of longitude and latitude white jade, and some of your favorite side dishes with improved relatives." The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became awkward. And finally the corners of the mouth twitched. The former doctor, my family, was also killed by the prince. Attracted by the central name soon, he came back to his senses and bowed to the Empress. The fan smiled and shook his head to tell the central Ming not to. Zhou Liangmin, who just came over for dinner today, scratched his head in embarrassment. At least let them sit down and add to sets by himself. When the room for tableware and chopsticks was clear, he looked at Xiaotian again with a puzzled expression. During the past few days when His Majesty and I were away, the entanglement happened. What is it? Xiaotian is secretly playing in his heart at this moment. How can he forget it? If his wife knows that he gave the Central Committee, the famous planner, discovered my talent, what should I do when the time comes to help with government affairs? Dr. Zhou looked at the table full of dishes. TSK praised her husband for being very hardworking. When a woman took a sip of clear wine, she found out that this wine is indeed better than before. After drinking for a long time, Yang Ling immediately said that it was all due to Xiaotian's improvement in brewing. at the youth's shocking winery, and it even belonged to the above, said to set an example for the emperor. Xiao Tian was covering his face with a headache. Help me, someone knock him out. Let's make it clear. I thought Xiao Tian was embarrassed to show a clear look. If this is not enough to explain the princes, the outstanding thing is that Xiao Tingting's breathing is almost stagnant. Nima also said that he only looked at the central name. He looked solemn and left his name in southern Xinjiang. Lord Knowledge and Diligence not only advises, but also personally organizes the price, but the price is to make Prince Chen Manchu a big man. Appetite is not worth mentioning. And truth, listening to the words of the central name is beautiful. The splendor appeared frequently in the middle. And after finishing speaking in one breath, the central name quietly raised a thumbs up towards Xiao Tian. Silently towards Xiao Ting in his heart. Cheer up, my lord, I can only help you get here. And Xiao Ting, who is sitting there, has already turned pale. After waiting for a long while, he slowly opened his mouth. You have such talent, why do you still call yourself a useless person? Xiao Ting showed embarrassment on his face, smiling, thinking about my good life. It seems that it will come to an end, from now on. Women will not be able to whip themselves with a small leather whip. But the woman didn't seem to be like what he thought. But instead said that you still have the total amount. I understand a little bit, but I'm good at eating, drinking, and having fun. Looking at Xiao Ting's brows furrow all the time, I can see his beautiful posture. Be careful, if you're not mistaken, you only think about eating, drinking and having fun. I'm afraid that it will really make you work hard for an official and an adult, right? Don't worry. I promised you that you will live a lifetime of prosperity and wealth without worrying about food and clothing, and be an idle prince. I don't mind being the boss of a tyrant, warrior chaoting these demons and sprites. Xiao Tian has already been teased at this time. Don't you want this? Is this the feeling of being capped? Don't be so cool. Then the woman asked Liu Yi to tell him to read the old man's. When he heard that Dashan was being held by a group of successors, Dr. Zhou stood up excitedly. He left his name. What he left behind was the name of Hades. And he also had a negative office headquarters today. Remember to confirm the killer. Wang Yuntan came to give birth. Yang Ming was overjoyed when he heard about this girl in the rain. This serious problem can be regarded as solved. At this time, Xiao Tian, it's not good to just eat food and drink carelessly while walking leisurely. Anyway, the woman has already become 100 in attitude and can win the light in the future. Lie flat. This is the name of the central government. When asked if you have room to play tomorrow, Yang Ming nodded in his eyes. Then, Your Majesty, I have to protect the prince, according to the rules. Tomorrow the court will let the prince meet the ministers and eat Zheng Xuan's Xiaoding. He suddenly raised his head and asked confusedly what the officials in front of him meant. Xiao Tian, the woman who frowned tightly, was silent for a long while. Would it be troublesome to speak, right? Slowly opened his mouth to talk about the reason why after the empress' father disappeared, his elder brother would inherit it. But the southern kingdom went south to him. After Yujia's personal battle died in Beijing, the second emperor's disciplinary committee finally also died of poisoning when he went south to comment. At the age of 16, with the help of Prime Minister Liu Haoshan, he ascended the throne and proclaimed himself emperor, and promised to return him to the throne when he was 18. Let's talk about forming a clique for personal gain and gaining power for a while, if it weren't for the hotel's secret plan. Thank you.